Hello and welcome to Warblog. This is another small game, low counter count game. It's actually called Operation Eland, as you can sort of see, but I didn't know that to start off with. I initially got this from the Times newspaper. This article here, Rhodesians kill 300 in hot pursuit. I think the term hot pursuit means that they carry out a raid over the border and then the Rhodesians follow them in hot pursuit. So this was reported on the 11th of August, and it's quite famous. Now these units are they're actually classed as Mozambique, but they're actually Rhodesian African National Guerrillas, and they were sort of being tolerated in Mozambique, and that's the sort of background to that. There's slightly similar to the Fremilo forces, Frelimo units. Now the thing is, I'll read the sort of title bit from the newspaper. Rhodesian forces have crossed into Mozambique and killed more than 300 guerrillas in an attack on a camp there, Salisbury claimed yesterday. The announcement said about 30 Mozambique troops and 10 civilians were also killed. I'm not going to read the whole thing through, but that's dated 10th of August. So now the thing is, there is a Wikipedia article on the same sort of thing. So Operation Eland, also known as the Naiad Zonia raid. Now this is Naiad Zonia. So let's just go into play mode. Naiad Zonia. So it says here, it was a preemptive strike carried out by the operatives of the Rhodesian Cellar Scouts at Naiad Zonia in Mozambique on 9th of August. The Rhodesians claimed 300 Zanla, which I think are probably what I should have called them, and 30 Fam, which are I think Familo. 30 Fam, I think actually there you go, the armed forces of Mozambique soldiers were killed. Now it says here, documentation captured after the event suggested that 1,028 were killed. Now the thing is, it's actually probably worth reading this, because I've read this through probably about 6 months ago, and I thought, well, that sounds good, I'll have to do that, and didn't get around to doing it. So let me just speed read it through to get to the important bit. On the 5th of August, a group of 60 Zanla guerrillas entered Rhodesia from Mozambique. So there you go, Rhodesia into Mozambique. Oh no, what am I talking about? 60 Zanla guerrillas entered Rhodesia from Mozambique and attacked a military base at Ruda, near Umtali. Now that's interesting, because there's Umtali there, which just happens to be there. Let's see, Rudy. So they basically attacked somewhere down here, as it says. I haven't read this through sort of recently, so I might be getting things a bit on the loose end. 4 days later, the guerrillas killed 4 soldiers in a mortar attack, and another died in a follow-up operation. The local white population demanded that action be taken. Operation Eland was hatched and involved a cross-border raid by 84 Cellar Scouts under Captain Rob Warwicker against a concentration of guerrillas located at a training camp on the Naiad Zonia River, 40 kilometers away in Mozambique. The attacking column consisted of 4 ferret armoured cars and 7 armoured Unimogs, 2 of which were armed with 20mm Hispano cannons scavenged from obsolete aircraft. So basically I'm interpreting that as being a mechanised infantry company. The vehicles were disguised to make them look like they belonged to Frelimo, which are the sort of the Mozambique nationalists, as opposed to Remlino, who were the other ones. While the men were backed by Rhodesia and South Africa, but while the men wore uniforms to match, while the men wore uniforms to match, amongst the soldiers was a turned former Zanla commander by the name of Morrison Nayathi, who led the attackers to the camp. The attacking party was able to bluff its way past the gate guards and drive into the very heart of the camp. Nayathi blew a whistle, which was the emergency signal for the guerrillas to muster on the parade ground. The vehicles were swarmed by thousands of guerrillas before the Rhodesians opened fire at point-blank range. Carnage ensued, with hundreds being shot or drowning in the nearby river in their attempt to escape. Zanla documents captured after the raid indicated that 1,028 of the number had been killed, a figure considerably higher than the 300 initially claimed by the Rhodesians. The bridge over the Pungwe River was a key strategic point that the assault team had to fight their way through on their return to Rhodesia. So we can maybe assume that that is that bridge there. Possibly, that's an assumption. The bridge was successfully assaulted and then charges laid under enemy fire to destroy it and thereby to cover the escape. The South African government withdrew military support that was being provided covertly through Operation Polo. Zanla claimed that the base was a refugee camp and that the assault was the worst atrocity of the war. Captured Zanla documents revealed that many of those killed in the raid were either trained guerrillas or undergoing guerrilla instruction. I've read that through because it's quite short, and when I read it first myself, I thought, wow. So they drive all this way in 4 ferret armoured cars and 7 armoured unimogs. So that's 11 armoured cars. Drove into a guerrilla training camp. I've read this somewhere else as well, and the description was slightly different. They basically said they took some soldiers who acted as prisoners, and then they got everyone to surround them in the training camp, and then they opened fire. But no matter how you look at it, it's still a sort of a pretty ballsy sort of operation to sort of drive in, in such a weak fashion, and then to open up on what they describe as thousands of enemy soldiers. The only reason I'm sort of reading that all out, I mean, it does sort of mention in there, and I think it might have changed since I first read it, but this other article I got here, dated 29th of May 77, so it's a year later, and it's the one that I got the Villa Salazar scenario from. It says the incursion that it's referring to the Villa Salazar game, which I've got, more scenario. The incursion, it says that the incursion was the third by the Rhodesian troops to have been officially announced in Salisbury. It was the first since last August, when the Rhodesians claimed to have killed more than 350 nationalist guerrillas at their base camps. Mozambique and United Nations sources said that the target attacked was a refugee camp at Nyad Zonia, and that the death toll was much higher. So, although it does hint at that, sort of through here, I think it says claimed that the base was a refugee camp. I mean, I've been trying to sort of struggle in my mind as to what actually happened. I mean, because obviously I don't know, and I've only been twiddling with this for a short while. But if it was, what I suspect it was probably part refugee camp and part sort of location for the African nationalist guerrillas, because the two go hand in hand. I mean, when you've got people that have been displaced or involved in that sort of type of activity, a refugee camp is the perfect recruiting ground or breeding ground for that type of person. And so I mean, when I first read it, I sort of got this sort of feeling of that what they were trying to describe Nyazonya to be sort of like a perfectly ordered military camp, with sentries and people walking around in matching hats and boots. And it probably wasn't. It was probably fairly open, just like a refugee camp, with some order, with some sort of people who sat in tents that were the commanders. And I don't know, but if it was a well-organised military camp, I can't see these 11 armoured cars just driving straight in and doing that. So it would maybe make sense that it was maybe a refugee camp, but it does seem to be a part of history, and I think that it is actually. I don't know what these are. It doesn't. I think there's I think there might be another one that's got a similar sort of premise. But so that's what this whole thing is about. So I'm just going to sort of play it quickly because I've got about 4 minutes. Shouldn't take that long. I probably won't be able to do it in 4 minutes, especially not at that rate. It's going to take me forever just to get there. So I'm across the border now, or not. So much for armoured cars. Now I'm not going to do the blowing the bridge up because I just didn't really think that far ahead. And they're going to be entrenched now. So let's do our sneaky surprise attack. Ah, look at that, 3-1 DR. Okay, so that worked. Should they attack? Probably not. Let's go for it. Whose turn is it? It's Rhodesians' turn. Okay, well they're going to try and attack back. Attack and retreat. So they lost. I'm not going to follow that up. I'm going to assume that we've now done all the casualties that we're going to do. It's quite slow. I'm not sure I'm going to do it in a minute. I can get back. Going through as fast as I can now. Right, I'm entrenched. Two more turns. Should just about do it. Okay, so I destroyed it. And heading back off over the bridge, which I destroyed. I think I'm going to get back to Rhodesia within 15 minutes. Okay, well I'll leave it at that, 5 seconds. So that's the premise of it. Speak later.